When you look at Nike today, I mean, the swoosh, the athletes, it feels like this powerhouse that just appeared fully formed.
Oh, absolutely. It feels inevitable now. But Phil Knight's memoir, Shoe Dog, it paints a completely different picture. Utter chaos.
Right. Just constant crisis mode. And that's what we want to dig into today. How did that chaotic, cash-strapped start actually build this global icon?
Exactly. We're looking for the, let's say, the core rules, the philosophies Knight developed while constantly putting out fires. It really started back in '62 with the simple, almost naive idea.
Just a kid who loved running and thought Japanese running shoes could be big in America.
Yeah, he saw how Japanese cameras had overtaken the German ones and thought, why not shoes? It was actually an idea from a business school paper he wrote.
Which apparently bored his classmates to tears. But he stuck with it. That tells you something right there.
It really does. So rule number one, maybe, is just having the sheer audacity to start before you're ready.
He takes this idea, goes traveling after graduation, hits up Greece, sees the Temple of Athena, Nike goddess of victory. Foreshadowing, maybe.
Maybe a little bit, but the real start before you're ready moment happens in Japan with Onitsuka, the company making tiger shoes.
Okay, yeah, this is where it gets interesting. Because he needs to convince them to give him distribution rights, but he's nobody. He doesn't even have a company.
Exactly. So they ask him, what company do you represent? And he panics. He hasn't thought of a name.
So what does he do?
He just blurts out, Blue Ribbon Sports. He literally pulls it out of thin air, thinking about the blue ribbons from track meets he had pinned up in his room.
Wow. So he just faked it, invented a company on the spot?
Pretty much. And it didn't stop there. Later, to get a bigger order, like 5,000 shoes, he tells Onitsuka they have offices on the East Coast, which they absolutely did not.
Okay, so we have to pause here. Lying about having a company, lying about offices.
Mm-hmm.
How do we square that? Is it just founder hustle or something else?
That's the question, isn't it? The book frames it as, well, extreme necessity combined with this overpowering belief in the product. He felt if he didn't grab that moment, didn't say something, the chance would vanish.
So less about deceiving for deception's sake, more about keeping the dream alive, maybe? Securing the product he genuinely thought people needed.
That seems to be the justification. It's definitely a risky approach, ethically complex, but for Knight, it was the only path forward at that moment. It really sets the stage for the kind of risks he'd keep taking.
It certainly does. So, okay, he gets the shoes, but how does he keep this thing going? Because for years, there was basically no money, right?
None. And that leads to another core idea. Seek a calling, not just a career. Knight was very clear on this. He said, if it's your calling, the fatigue will be easier to bear, the disappointments will be fuel.
And he lived that, working full-time as an accountant and then selling shoes out of his car trunk on weekends and evenings.
For 5 years.
5 years, a total double life, and every penny they made went straight back into ordering more shoes. No salary, just reinvestment. Which must have driven his family, especially his dad, crazy, wanting him to get a real job.
Oh, absolutely. Huge pressure to conform, to be respectable. But Knight found something powerful in selling those shoes.
Yeah, you mentioned this contrast. He failed selling encyclopedias, but selling shoes felt easy. Why the difference?
Because he believed in the shoes. He wasn't just pushing a product, he was sharing his passion. He wrote, people, sensing my belief, wanted some of that belief for themselves. Rule number 2, maybe? Sell enthusiasm.
That makes sense. You're not just selling leather and rubber. You're selling improvement, victory,
Exactly. And that belief attracted the right team. He didn't hire typical salespeople. He hired fellow runners, people who got it, like Jeff Johnson, employee number 1.
Right, a guy who built that amazing customer database and opened the first store. Total fanatic, in a good way.
Totally. Or Bob Waddell, a runner who became paralyzed but joined as operations manager. They were hiring passion and shared vision, not just resumes. That built a really resilient culture.
Which they definitely needed, because the next phase was just brutal financially, wasn't it? The whole grow or die thing.
Brutal is an understatement. Knight believed life and business was about growth. And Blue Ribbon grew like crazy. Sales doubled, like every single year, for almost 2 decades.
Which sounds amazing.
Yeah.
84K in 67, 300K in 69, $14 million by 76. Numbers go up, everyone's happy, right?
Wrong. Well, not entirely wrong, but that growth was also the source of near constant financial terror. It created this triple threat.
Okay, break that down. What was the threat?
Okay, first, 100% growth means you need double the cash every year just to buy inventory. Second, Onitsuka demanded payment up front. way before the shoes arrived.
So cash out the door immediately.
Right. And third, they sold to retailers on credit, so they wouldn't actually see the cash in for months, maybe 180 days later.
So you're always paying for yesterday's growth while trying to fund tomorrow's. That sounds impossible.
Yeah, it almost was. He was constantly borrowing more and more just to cover the orders he knew he could sell. The banks hated it. They saw this massive debt, tiny cash reserves.
And they kept telling him to slow down.
Constantly. Or they just kicked him out. First National Bank of Oregon, Bank of California.
Yeah.
They both cut him off eventually. The Bank of Cal pulling their $1 million line in '75 was almost the end.
$1 million back then was everything. How did they survive that?
Pure luck. No, smart planning, actually. He'd built a relationship with Nisho Iwai, a big Japanese trading company. They stepped in with funding right when the bank pulled out, saved the whole company.
Wow. A backup plan for the backup plan. But just when they thought they were maybe, possibly, slightly safe.
Bam. The U.S. government hits them with a $25 million bill.
$25 million. For import duties. How is that even possible? That was like their entire annual revenue.
It was insane. It came down to this really obscure protectionist law called the American Selling Price, or ASP.
Okay, ASP. What did that mean practically?
Yeah. Instead of paying duties on the price, Knight actually paid Onitsuka in Japan. The import cost ASP forced him to pay duties based on the price of a similar shoe made in America.
Which would obviously be way higher. So the government was basically saying, you owe us duties based on a fictional, much higher price.
Exactly. It was designed to protect U.S. manufacturers by artificially inflating the cost basis for imports. For Knight, running on fumes already, this retroactive bill was potentially fatal.
Just unbelievable pressure. So how did he react? Did he panic? Freeze?
No, and that's another key lesson, maybe rule 6. Fail fast. He wasn't paralyzed. His attitude was, if we're going down, let's figure it out quickly, learn, and move on. But mostly, it was sheer persistence. He fought it legally, politically. He just refused to die.
That constant battle, plus the growing mistrust with Onitsuka, must have made something clear, though.
Absolutely. They couldn't rely on a supplier forever. They needed their own destiny, their own brand. Rule 7.
Build a brand, which meant ditching Blue Ribbon Sports as the main identity. And they needed a name. I heard Knight's favorite was Dimension 6.
Yeah, thankfully that didn't stick. They were down to the wire, needed a name for the first shipment of their own shoes. Jeff Johnson, the first employee, had a dream about Nike, the Greek goddess of victory.
And Knight wasn't thrilled.
Not really, but they were out of time. He basically said, okay, fine, let's go with Nike. It was almost an afterthought.
Amazing how iconic that afterthought became.
Yeah.
But the name wasn't the only innovation. They were big on experimentation, right? Rule 8.
Huge on it. Knight really admired Sony, how they innovated based on intuition, not endless market research. And that led to some game changers.
Like the waffle sole. I love that story. Bill Bowerman, the co-founder and track coach.
Yep, having breakfast, looks at his wife's waffle iron, and has this light bulb moment. What if that grid pattern could make a shoe sole grippy but lightweight?
Ruins the waffle iron, pours rubber into it.
Huh, yeah. But creates the waffle trainer, became a massive seller, generated crucial cash right when they desperately needed it after the Onitsuka split and during the ASP fight.
Pure genius, born from breakfast. And then there was the air technology. That sounds like a huge gamble.
Or it was. Pressurized airbags in shoes. Idea from a former aerospace engineer. The first versions were apparently a disaster defects, recalls.
They stuck with it.
They did. That persistence paid off eventually with the Air Max line, which, became synonymous with Nike innovation.
So invention, crisis, growth. As the company got bigger, how did Knight manage it all? He couldn't be everywhere, approving everything.
No, and he knew it. He shifted his leadership style. He studied figures like General Patton, believe it or not.
Patton. How did that apply?
His takeaway was about delegation and trust. Rule 9, maybe? Don't micromanage. His philosophy became, don't tell people how to do things, tell them what to do, and let them surprise you with the results.
Give them the gold and get out of the way.
Exactly. Especially when you're doubling sales from $70 million to $140 million in just a couple of years. You have to trust your people, let them run with it. It unleashed creativity.
Which brings us sort of full circle to the end of the Shoe Dog story, 1980, the IPO.
The finish line, Rule 10 perhaps, go public. Finally, after nearly 2 decades of scraping by, Nike goes public.
And overnight, Phil Knight's worth something like $178 million. And those early employees, the runners, the believers.
They became millionaires too.
Yeah.
The ultimate payoff for all that struggle and loyalty.
But Knight, in the book, he downplays the money, doesn't he?
He really does. He frames going public not just as a financial event, but as part of his lifelong search for connection through sports, through the shared mission of the company, through family. The money was validation, sure, but the real value was the journey, the relationships.
He even says his greatest wish is just to do it all over again.
Which is pretty incredible considering the stress. It underscores that the meaning was in the struggle itself.
There's that quote he uses. It's pretty intense. The cowards never started, and the weak died along the way. That leaves us, ladies and gentlemen, us.
Yeah, it's stark. It really captures that feeling of survival, of having endured something incredibly difficult together.
And it leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it, for everyone listening?
Absolutely. Considering everything Knight risked inventing a company, facing bankruptcy seemingly every year, battling the government, it makes you wonder, what's that crazy idea in your own life that might be worth pursuing, even if you feel totally unprepared?